Glad to have you with us in studio. AP, come on inside. Good to have you with us on Morning Drive on YouTube. So let's start with what we saw in round one in Sea Island. Webb Simpson leading the RSM Classic after opening up with a 7 under 65. That gives Simpson a one-shot lead over Cameron Tringali, Kyung-Hoon Lee, and Rian Gibson. So Simpson birdied 7 of his last 10 holes, including his final 3 of the day on Thursday. It was quite the impressive 2019, though, for Webb, as he's got 6 top 10s thus far, including 3 runner-up finishes. He hasn't finished outside of the top 30, actually, since March. So for more, let's send it on over to Anna Whiteley and the guys.
Thanks, Kelsey. Well, it is time for a little bit of buy or sell, chaps. Are you buying or selling the concept that Webb Simpson is the most underrated player in the world?
Sell.
Okay.
Selling. I think he would be definitely in the conversation as the most underrated player on the PGA Tour. I think because we have so many rated players, not even necessarily overrated players, but if you look at the top 5 in the world, Brooks, Rory, JT, DJ, John Rahm, these guys are scooping up the headlines and the ink. And then, right after that, you got Patrick Cantlay coming in at number 6. So for me, I mean, that's a whisper, right? Anything Patrick Cantlay, it's just always under the radar. He's under the fact that he's number 6 in the world says all that you need to know why he's the most underrated player in the world. I don't think anybody would guess that. Not to mention Xander Schauffele, number 9 in the world. This guy is taking on all the big names and doing it so subtly, so deftly, so quietly, not getting a lot of recognition, not doing a lot of beating his own chest, doesn't do it a lot of flash, just consistently great ball striking, great short game, great putting, accurate off the tee. So I think, and then I could throw Paul Casey in that conversation as well, very quietly working his way up the world rankings. So is Webb Simpson in the conversation? Yes. Is he the most overrated? I would say no.
But he hasn't won a major, hasn't won a Players, Xander and Patrick Cantlay. Does that add to why he is the most underrated player, do you think?
I think it adds a lot because I think a lot of people think of Webb Simpson and think, wait a minute, he did win a major? Yeah, I forgot about that one at Olympic. And yes, he did win the Players. He didn't just win the Players. He won it in dominant fashion, but it's kind of forgettable.
So are you buying or are you selling?
I am going to buy what Matt sold. Absolutely, I think he's the most underrated player. I mean, part of it is he looks as he's playing golf. When he hits a golf shot, he kind of has this flip move, and you think he's lost it way right, but it comes in close. The way he putts with his arm wrapped around the shaft, it's like a snake's wrapped around his arm, and he's trying to choke it to death before it chokes him to death, but the putts seem to go in. He hits enough shanks to where you got to watch him every time he hits because he may hit another one here. He hits just enough to keep your attention. Yet what does he do? He cashes checks. He wins big events like the Players, like the U.S. Open. He makes so much money. He's top 10 in the money list in the last 2 years amongst these great players. You're talking about 7 top 10s last season, including 3 second places in his last 5 events of the regular season. And we just don't talk about him that much. I think he is way underrated.
Yeah.
I think he does get a lot of that conversation when he does win that major, when he does win that player. I think he does get in the, playing for, the team events and Ryder Cups and Presidents. I think he's in that conversation, whereas that's why the Cantlays and Xanders do fly under the radar. They haven't had those moments in which we really celebrate, the crowning achievements. They're working their way into that situation, and I suspect that'll be their year in 2020.
I'm slightly leaning towards your side of things, Matt Janella. I think Webb Simpson, I know, for one.
Get away from that guy.
I'm selling this. I think Webb Simpson, like you say, is very much in the conversation. But when you look at the likes of Patrick Cantlay, who's number 6 in the world, and Xander Schauffele, I mean, for all of the reasons that you said, and then you get the guys who have just been snubbed from the President's Cup, like Kevin Kisner, Kevin Na. There's a lot of guys out there that do fall under this category, which kind of makes me wonder, what is it about a player that puts them in that underrated box? Why do we underrate certain players?
It's the amount of press they get usually, and the players we're mentioning don't get a lot of press because they're not loud. Patrick Cantlay actively runs from doing interviews and stuff. He does not like doing it. Xander Schauffele doesn't, he does some press and media, but he doesn't say much. It's not, there's nothing really intriguing about these other players. Brooks, we know what he says. Rory with his driver. John Rahm is so volatile. Dustin Johnson is so much fun to watch. He hits it 400 miles we know what they're doing, and we see them in the media a lot, and these other players just kind of fall out. That's what makes the whole list of these players underrated, because frankly, their game is worthy of being rated higher than they are.
So what, does that mean Webb Simpson, not the most fun guy to watch out there on the golf course?
Boy, that's a good question. I mean, again, when you're trying to pick between Webb Simpson and Dustin Johnson or Rory McIlroy or Brooks Koepka, that's when you get those guys taking all those headlines and all that energy and activity, that's what allows guys to be underrated. You have to have all that rating happening in order for guys to be underrated. And I think there's also just some people that are introverted. They aren't. This is just not their style to go around and talk about. To be honest with you, Brooks Koepka really didn't talk a lot until he started winning majors, and then he said, I basically have a voice now. I've proven to myself that I am, supposed to be in this conversation, that I am the top. And then you get asked enough questions, eventually you say, I can actually now start saying what I really believe because I've earned that microphone. A lot of these guys just sort of are comfortable being where they are and letting their games do the talking.
Is there anything Webb Simpson can do to kind of change the way that people perceive him as someone who is more of a headliner, more of an entertainer, or he's kind of just happy where he is? He's achieved so much.
Pick up about 50 yards off the tee maybe, and people start talking about that. I know his personality is not going to change, so I think he just is where he is in the game. I don't think there's anything he could do, nor do I think there's anything he should do to try to change that. I think he's pretty comfortable in his own skin. He's very successful. Keep doing what you're doing.
And I think that below the radar, underrated, moniker that he might have actually does him good in situations like U.S. Opens or President's Cups. You know what I mean? I think that's the kind of he flying that way. Those guys tend to win tournaments like that.
Okay, good stuff. Well, Webb Simpson currently leading the way at the RSM Classic, so stay tuned to that over the weekend. LT.
I want to see how it all shakes out there on St. Simon's Island. So buying or selling, what do you all think? And if not Webb Simpson as the most underrated player, then who? Leave that in the comments. Be a part of the suggestions here. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's conversations. Make sure to subscribe to Golf Channel's YouTube page for more, and tune in to Golf Channel and Morning Drive every day. See how we do it up live in Studio AP for the latest across the game.